Hello everybody, I am Dr. A.M. Thirinjanam, Senior Interventional Cardiologist from IPCAR Cardiac Care Center. Today, very interesting, complicated, most of the time in the early stage it is asymptomatic. When the disease progresses into serious level, it can damage our organs, especially kidney, heart, brain and lymph vessels. Takayasu arteritis. In the early stage, the Takayasu arteritis is very asymptomatic. It will not cause any complaint. It will not cause any major discomfort for the first 5 to 7 years. When the disease progresses into moderate to serious level, that can damage the vital organs and it can make the patient disabled. I have performed left common carotid total reconstruction of stenting patient with Takayasu arteritis. This is the first time performed in the world. Previously we had some reports of surgical management of Takayasu arteritis in the intracranial vessels. But this is the first case I have performed 3 stents to the left common carotid origin to the bifurcation level of internal and external carotid artery. Very commonly, Takayasu arteritis found in as young as possible. It can affect 6 months old baby to 23-24 years elder people. The disease can manifest as an isolated, atypical and a catastrophic. Most of the time, the disease, as I said before, is asymptomatic and atypical. Finally, that leads to serious catastrophic effect. It can involve any of the major organs: brain, kidney, liver, heart and major aorta and its branches. The pathophysiology of the disease, morphology of the disease can be occlusive, stenotic and aneurysm. These 3 forms of disease very common with the Takayasu arteritis. Male and female ratio 1:1.6. That means predominantly female sex are commonly affected by Takayasu arteritis than male population. Classification of this Takayasu arteritis: Class 1, the branches of aortic arch. Branches of aortic arch means right subclavian, left subclavian, left vertebral artery, right vertebral artery, left common carotid artery, right common carotid arteries. These upper level vessels comes under type A. Type 2A, aortic arch and ascending aorta. Ascending aorta, that may be a Takayasu related aneurysm, stenosis, sometimes occlusion. So very common. Type 2B, ascending aorta, aortic arch and descending aorta. These 3 part of segments are involved in type 2B Takayasu arteritis. Type 3A, thoracic aorta, descending aorta, abdominal and renal arteries are involved. This comes under type 3A, thoracic, descending, abdominal aorta and renal vessels, renal arteries. Type 4, abdominal aorta, renal arteries. Sometimes it can be both. Type 5, the entire aortic aorta segment, aortic branches and its segments involvement. That comes under type 5. This interesting case I am going to share with you. She developed on and off giddiness, numbness in the lower limbs, both the legs. Other than she never had any complaints. Those complaints are tolerable. She used to do normal activity. She used to attend her college studies without any discomfort. At the age of 23, suddenly she developed giddiness, and the symptom was persisted for 15 minutes. Then the giddiness spontaneously relieved without any medications. Along with that giddiness, she used to get intermittent claudication. Whenever she walks for more than 10 or 15 minutes, she used to get lower limb pain, both the leg pain. Then when she takes rest, that pain gets relieved normally. These were the major complaints before she had. Suddenly, one day she developed swelling in the neck. Then she underwent all the evaluation with the local doctor. They performed a Doppler study, carotid Doppler. There they found left common carotid flow was completely absent. From there, they referred the patient to my center. I did first carotid CT angiogram followed by carotid angioplasty. In this carotid angioplasty, the retrograde carotid angioplasty, normally for the brain vessels, we have the only one option, antegrade approach. From bottom to upper level, we do angioplasty. From top to down level, that is downgrade, retrograde angioplasty is very rarely performed in the world. The first time in our center, I performed retrograde angioplasty for the left common carotid. First, we opened the external carotid artery. From there, we connected one plastic tube, 2 inches plastic tube. Other end of the plastic tube is connected to sheath, a small 7 French sheath. That sheath, through the sheath, we engaged guide wire, balloon, stents. Here you can see the diagram, just a pictorial simple diagram how I performed this retrograde way angioplasty. Now next I am going to show you the angiography, what we have found in angiography. It's a very interesting angiography. There you can see the flow is completely absent, almost 100% occlusion. In the first angio, there you can see the guide wire just proximal to the disease. The flow is absolutely absent. There is no flow. First I took the guide wire, cyan blue. That wire didn't go. The second wire I took, Gaia 1, new wire. That wire also didn't pass. Thirdly, I took Gaia 2 wire. With the support of balloon, the wire touched the ostium of left common carotid. Here you can see Gaia 2 wire with the balloon support. With the balloon support, the wire touched the ostium of the left common carotid. From there, I took 2 mm balloon for the support and pushed the wire hardly to the descending aorta. Then finally, I crossed the lesion successfully. Here you can see the wire is completely crossed, and I kept the wire in the descending aorta. The entire procedure was done under general anesthesia. Here you can see intubated tube. I took first 2 mm and 15 mm size balloon, non-compliant balloon, from proximal to distal level, descending aorta level. I dilated first with 18 atmospheric pressure. That is 3 mm balloon, 3 into 15 non-compliant balloon. Simultaneously, from top to bottom, I inflated. So during the procedure, during the pre-dilatation, I have found no dissection or any abnormal flow inside the common carotid artery. Here the post-dilatation you can see the flow. Here, now I kept the wire in the ascending aorta, aortic sinus, because I felt very tough. I am not able to take the wire into the descending aorta. But anyway, the position of this wire is very safe. It will not have any problem. That wire is only guide wire only 0.014 inch. So here you can see the flow, and there is no counter strain adjacent to the wire. That means there is no dissection. First stent I deployed from osteoproximal left common carotid to body of the common carotid, and the first stent size is 60 into 7 millimeter size. The second size I took 7 millimeter and 60 millimeter length, 7 millimeter diameter and 60 millimeter length. Second stent. Here I am deploying the second stent. The procedure, the whole procedure, it's a very important, and that procedure should be carefully monitored hemodynamics wise and arterial dissection and any abnormal flow apart from that guide wire. After the second stent implantation, here you can see the flow is absolutely normal now. Now, proximal to the second stent, there is residual stenosis is there. Again, that third stent going to cover the residual stenosis of the left common carotid. The residual stenosis extending into left internal carotid artery and the external carotid artery junction level. So that the third stent is going to cover the vessel properly, and it will give the complete wrist constriction of the left common carotid artery. Here you can see the third stent, which I am aligning to overlap the second stent, and proximally we have to cover the residual lesions perfectly. If you leave any residual lesions without stenting, in future that may cause again restenosis, again new stenosis, then again this procedure going to be waste in future, and patient supposed to undergo second procedure, surgical procedure, any other complicated procedure. So that is the reason the third stent is aligned properly and cover the residual lesions perfectly. Here you can see the final result. After implanting 3 stents, the final result is completely normal. There is no residual stenosis, dissection or dissection inside the stent or stent edge areas. After the procedure, very importantly, I told frequently in my previous videos, medications are very important to preserve the procedure and to avoid secondary events in future, and to prevent further progression of the disease and preserve the existing procedure in future. So the medications are very important. They should be continued lifelong. Based on the periodical follow-up, sometimes we can stop some medications and simultaneously we can add some medications. So this is based on follow-up timings. Very importantly, for this Takayasu arteritis, patient already received 3 carotid stents. That means the entire left common carotid artery was reconstructed by stent. So the patient, Takayasu arteritis patient, should receive anti-inflammatory drugs particularly, because the Takayasu arteritis is a inflammatory disease. For inflammatory disease, anti-inflammatory is the antidote. Okay. Inflammatory disease, the first choice we prefer methylprednisolone or deflazacort. Methylprednisolone, this is a patient age is 23 years old and her weight is 58 kg. So methylprednisolone we can prescribe safely 10 mg TAD for the first 1 month. Then after that we will reduce the dose 10 mg BAD twice in a day. Then gradually we will continue. Meanwhile, we will monitor for if the patient is receiving methylprednisolone like steroid or deflazacort, the patient folic acid level should be monitored and beta level should be monitored, And calcium level, serum calcium level also should be monitored, because steroid anti-inflammatory drugs can lower the folic acid, calcium and B12 level. So that is the reason periodically during the course of treatment and during the follow-up course of treatment, we have to monitor folic acid, B12, calcium. Based on the value, we have to replace frequently. And calcium, folic acid, general vitamins are very important stay of treatment. These are the mainstay of treatment, those who are having steroid drugs. And the antiplatelets are mainstay of treatment to preserve the current treatment and protect and prevent further progression of the disease. The stent may have again thrombosis, blood clot inside. So to avoid stents, restenosis and stent thrombosis in future, the stent thrombosis can happen. So to avoid all these complications, antiplatelet treatments are very important. Here in this patient, I have prescribed aspirin 150 mg and clopidogrel 75 mg regularly. Sometimes the patient is doing well and we can reduce the dose of aspirin 75 and clopidogrel 75 mg, 75-70 per composition. In case if any consultant, any operator, if they feel they can add statin, atorvastatin or rosuvastatin. In this patient, I have prescribed rosuvastatin 20 mg per day. This rosuvastatin can be reduced into 10 mg in future based on their lipid parameters and their inflammatory levels. Suppose if the patient is having persistently elevated C-reactive protein, we can continue the 20 mg of rosuvastatin, or if necessary we can increase the dose of rosuvastatin into 40 mg. But the side effects are very less and we have to monitor any untoward incidents during the course of treatment. So this patient successfully discharged on second day of procedure. There is no untoward incidents. Patient was stable and she was walking comfortably. So this procedure, even though it is very complicated and the lesion complexity is very high. Thank you very much, friend. Thank you for watching Ipcot TV. Subscribe, press the bell button and share this video. If you have any doubts regarding Takayuki-arthritis, vascular disease or any coronary artery disease or cerebrovascular disease, you can write your comments, questions in the comment box.